Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the war between the Russian Federation and Ukraine. Now, before I start, I don't know if anyone has had the opportunity to watch some of the recent congressional testimony of the leadership functionaries of institutions of quote-unquote higher learning, I would say higher indoctrination, from Penn, Harvard, MIT. Now, very interesting that what transpired in that testimony. And those institutions have walked away with massive amounts of egg on their face, so to speak. But I got to tell you, it's even worse than that in many schools, than what you just heard. So, for instance, you could hear congressional leaders asking those institutional leaders in regards to saying genocide to Jews, death to Jews. And the perception is that is okay on campus. Well, perception is reality. It is okay. What is interesting is that if you are a student, say at Harvard, and you go to the middle of Harvard Square and you declare that transvestite men are not women. Transvestites are not women. You will get in more problems, more trouble. You risk getting removed from school than if you were to go to the middle of that same square and yell, "Death to Jews." Perfectly acceptable. Very interesting. Very interesting. And it just gets worse from there. The school systems here in the United States are going to lead to the destruction of the United States. If the schools are not purged, it is going to destroy the United States. It is going to change the United States in a way that you cannot imagine. And this will occur 10, 20, 30 years from now. If you think what is happening right now is extreme, just wait. So I won't get too much on that, but again, check out the testimony. It is absolutely insane. The questions that were asked and the inability of those institutional leaders to answer those questions in a reasonable manner. So back to the ongoing conflict that is taking place. Not a lot to report in terms of territorial changes. The Russians continue to strike and use air power, long-range artillery against the Ukrainians' front lines. More importantly, I would say the biggest issue right now that we could see occur is the abandoning of the eastern bank of the Dnieper River by Ukrainian forces. There are Ukrainian forces. Let's go over to the military land map so you can see kind of the force construct that is alleged by Ukrainian forces in these areas. So obviously, here in Krinky, at least military land projects that there is a battalion-sized element of the 137th Marine Battalion of the 35th Marine Brigade operating in Krinky. And then also you have a hodgepodge of other naval infantry and marine units on this eastern bank of the Dnieper River. Now remember, please understand that these areas are swampy marshlands. The conditions of Ukrainian forces that are operating in these areas are appalling. As we reported before, approximately 50% of Ukrainian forces that are operating in this area are walking wounded in terms of having frostbite, other issues because they don't have access to the ability to warm themselves. They are constantly in very cold conditions, and the Russians are very much focused on boats and personnel that are crossing back to Ukraine as opposed to coming from Ukraine to the eastern bank. And now we're hearing that indeed Ukrainian forces are now discussing the prospects of, in fact, abandoning the eastern bank of the Dnieper River. And again, it really doesn't do the Ukrainian positional war any good to maintain forces in this area, much less the high-quality Ukrainian forces that were deployed to take some of these areas. The prospects of Ukrainian forces launching a offensive operation to push out of this marshland is very much unlikely and is not going to occur. So again, it is being reported now that, at least what we are hearing, is that the Ukrainians are in fact discussing the abandonment of Krinky and other areas on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River. Now we're continuing to watch what is happening in other locales as well. We are continuing to see an increase in Russian aviation strikes against Ukrainian ground targets. We're continuing to see the same tempo of drone strikes and missile attacks and artillery strikes all along the front line. Now, we have seen within the last few days the Russians launch deep penetration strikes with cruise missiles, both from ground-based systems and air-launched systems against targets deep inside of Ukraine. Now, we haven't seen that in some time, and we believe the Russians have been stockpiling those systems for the upcoming winter months, where it is anticipated that the Russians could start to launch infrastructure strikes against Ukrainian infrastructure. So that's where we sit for today. We will continue to monitor and report. Thank you for joining us. More to come very, very soon. And as always, have a good day.